than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a...
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is the show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the Matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. A new reality for lots of people. A new world is in order. People talk about the new world order. People talk about lots of things that are new in the world. And one of the things that we haven't come across up until now in our country, in Australia, or in the Western world, or any time really in the last 100 years or 200 years in the Western world, is a new currency, a new reset, or a new amount of debt that we've seen today. And today in the world, we have seen over the course of the last 24 to 36 months since the start of 2020, they have printed more money in 2 years or 3 years, or currency should I call it, than what they have for the 200 years prior to that. And what does that all mean for the everyday person? Why am I so excited by that? What is going to give in the system for, it's either going to break and fall apart, or it's going to, go up a lot. And today I want to talk about something very, very important. And that is news just recently has come out that they're looking to import or migrate more people to pay taxes. So, why do we now have immigration policy that's changing, where we're at 150,000 people per year? Now they're talking about it going minimum to 200 and potentially up to 400,000 people per year. That's a very interesting number and a very scary stat for everyone to be able to think about. So firstly, why would we be bringing in 200,000 people a year, 400,000 people a year, and why is that good for the economy, and why is it needed? Basically, the amount of money printing or currency creation that we've had has built trillions and trillions of dollars of debt globally, and we've got almost $1 trillion already in the last 2 years that we've printed here as a nation. If we put that in perspective, what caused recession in the 1990s was $96 billion, and now we've got over 10 times that amount that's been printed in 2 years, in 2020 to 2022. So when we look back on that, that's coming at a cost. Where's the currency get created from? The central banks print that. They sell bonds. Those bonds are tied very closely with the interest rates. So as the bond prices are increasing, interest rates are increasing, it costs more money for that bond to be held. So the government now has to spend a lot more money to be able to hold that money, that debt that they've taken on. So all this debt's being created. How do we pay that debt off, and how do we try and minimize that debt? The only way for us to be able to do so is to hyperinflate the currency and to get rid of that debt, make the debt seem a lot less, which I still think it is low, but on our current standard of 25 million or however many people we've got in our country, it's going to be much harder for us to be able to service that debt and pay it off. So we need to have more taxpayers in the system to be able to contribute the extra costs to fund that extra currency that we've got. So we can either tax our current population at a greater rate and take their money off them, which will cause even greater inflation or deflation to the system. It will cause a lot more pain to the system. If everyone's getting taxed more, then they don't have money to go and spend on their food, their groceries, their consumable goods, their cars, and all those sorts of things. So everyone becomes worse off, and will definitely end up in a recession because everyone's, just getting by as it is already. Or we can bring more people to the table, try and disperse that need for that, and bring it in via new migrants. So what happens when we bring new migrants into the country? What will be the flow and effect? So it is a good thing that we have migration. We cannot breed quick enough to get as many people paying taxes. So we need to migrate existing people that are already alive to our country to contribute to our system. So with them bringing in 200,000, 400,000 people, let's just think about that. 200,000 people would be the size of almost Darwin. It would be bigger than the size of Hobart. It would be the size of Townsville, roughly. 400,000 people would be the whole stretch of far north Queensland, southeast Queensland, being the Gold Coast area. So literally every year now we're going to be bringing in the Gold Coast, right? Just think about the infrastructure that's in the Gold Coast, right? the amount of units, the shops, the people, the roads, all of that sort of stuff. We're now bringing in that amount of people that you see in the Gold Coast in 2023, 2024, 2025. Over 3-year period, that could be 1 million people. If we have 1 million people coming over 3 years, that would be something like the size of Perth or the size of Adelaide. I'd have to go double check those stats. So just, you might sit there and say, well, there's more people or less people in those states. But you're starting to get the picture of how quickly this would, multiply. If we bring in migration the size of at 400,000 people for 10 years, that's, the size of Queensland as a whole that would be coming into the country over a period of a decade. Where are we going to house these people? Where are they going to work? What are they going to do? So we need to keep bringing these people in, but that will also create a pent-up demand for the existing stock. And that's one of the exciting things that I see is the pent-up demand that we're about to see, because builders are dropping like flies. People are buying blocks of land in these estates and these greenfield areas, but they can't afford to build on them now. The cost of building's gone up. I see so regularly from the community people saying, hey, I bought a block of land, I've built a house, I just need to make an adjustment to it. Now I don't service the loan with the bank. So there's a big sort of like jam up. It's like someone slammed the brakes on the economy, which has been the creator of this mess, which is the central bank, has slammed the brakes on, and a lot of people are now getting whiplash from that. When you start adding in new parameters to it, the migration levels is another stimulus package. That's a stimulus of tax dollars that's going to be coming in. That's a stimulus of people needing to consume from our country, which will inevitably, help create inflation and, add to the mess that we've already got. So just imagine the roads that you drive on, and you add, 400,000 people, let's say 250,000 people. 250,000 people, if we've got 25 million, that's like 1% of our population every year. So if every year over the next 10 years, if they just disperse naturally to your local neighbourhood, every area gets, 1% extra population every year for the next 5 to 10 years. That's 5, 10, maybe even 15%, depending on what level of immigration there is, expansion on the infrastructure that you've already got. You think that it takes a long while to drive across from one side of the city to the other. Imagine adding more cars on the road. Imagine adding more, need for transport and all those sorts of things. So that will give a new opportunity, as we've got these new people in the system, for the system to be able to expand. It'll absorb a lot of the stress and the pressures that are there already. It'll add new stresses and pressures in other areas, and it'll help us expand. If you look at places like Japan, they've got a massive recession that's occurred for over the last 3 decades because they've got a stagflation. It's just basically a dying economy over there because they've hit peak population levels, and the older generation are dying off, and there's more people in the older generation than there is in the younger generation. So in a system that we have, deflation of anything, whether it be our currency, deflation of currency will cause a massive depression. Deflation of our human capital, of the people that are in our nations, will cause a bigger issue. So as you're having an increase, you're having an expansion of everything that's around. You're having an expansion of, jobs and opportunities and stuff like that. So, a lot of people go, we don't want to have, so many people coming in because it's going to put pressure on our roads. It's creating opportunity. Depends on what side of the coin. I'm all for it. Bring in more and more people because it'll create more demand for the properties that we have, for the infrastructure that we have, which will in turn push up the value of those things. It'll also, create opportunity for new areas. So I know deep down that they're going to be doing smart cities and things like that. We've just seen last week the state premier for New South Wales announced that he's got a plan for a 6-part regional city, which sounds to me like a smart city, right? And there's talks about these fast trains that are going to travel between Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane and open up certain corridors. These corridors that get opened will be areas for people to go for better opportunity. They would be like, okay, I can't afford to live in Sydney. I'll move to, I don't know, Newcastle or Tamworth, or areas that are further afield and not in the cities. And they'll build infrastructure around that for it to flow through. So where will this all lead to? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think that it'll help absorb what could be a recession in one hand, but it'll also we've seen what's happened in 2 years because they've made all these bullshit sort of schemes, right? And it's actually funny when you think about a scheme, right? A scheme, I've never seen a good scheme, right? If you're a schemer, you're a scammer, you're building a scheme, right? When they talk about these schemes that they have, these first home buyer schemes and the building schemes and all these sorts of things, it's creating bubbles, right? It's creating a false economy. As you start bringing in these schemes for new migrants to flow into the country, that's going to add up a pent-up demand that'll cause a bigger need for housing, which will then cause the next boom to occur. And, it's just it's one of their tools, one of the levers that they can pull to navigate through the mess that they're creating. So I'm quite excited by it. It'll be very interesting to see what happens to our cities over years to come. I know some people will be like, we've already got too many people on the roads. It takes forever to drive around. I feel that where I am in Sydney, but I see the opportunity there from a wealth perspective and an asset perspective. Imagine migrants coming in and needing affordable housing, which isn't really there. What's it going to do to rents? What's it going to do to the need for more accommodation? And I think when we look forward in places like Sydney and becoming in other cities at the moment, going back, if you look just think about if you watched Seinfeld from or one of those American sitcoms back in the 90s, right? And when you look at those sitcoms, they never talk about buying a house like, I better go and buy a unit in New York, right? All those New York shows, they're talking about the opportunity. Oh, wow, I've just got a lease. I've been waiting 3 years to get a lease, right? It's a very different world. Here in Australia, we have it as a right that we go and, we deserve to have a house that we can buy. We deserve to go and buy a unit. We deserve to buy a property. In a lot of nations, it's just okay. We're just a intergenerational of renters, and I think as we start seeing, a push up on these prices and more, migration and more growth to our population occurring, that's going to create, a bigger need for that lifelong rental world that we live in. So owning assets, very important. Hyperinflation, definitely on track. Imagine adding more people into the scheme when we have hyperinflation. It's going to, drag things out a little bit, but it'll also add a lot of fun along the way. So interesting. Keep an eye out for it. Population news. If you can see greater levels of population, all those people are going to be housed somewhere, need a new car, need this, need that, need the next thing. That's going to help absorb a part of a recession. So that's just my thoughts on it. On that note, guys, if you need help, reach out to my team, 1300 367 925. Send us an email, admin@binvested.com.au. Make sure you subscribe to this every week on Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify, and YouTube. Check us out, the No BS with Birchy podcast. Catch up soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Centralized, and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, because they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system. Enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory. You better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I never been a failure. Excuse my behavior. Keep talking. Haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies. I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, like Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing. Here for the taking. My time is never wasted. Just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really